Devastating effects of chemical warfare during the Vietnam conflict. The Vietnam War, a graphic history, sets out to show the world, more specifically the United States viewing audience, what went down in the Vietnam conflict. The comic is split up into 6 different sections, with each section being dedicated to a different aspect of the war. The prologue discusses the events leading up to the Vietnam War. The second section, Commitment, talks about the many ways the United States attempted to participate in the war in order to prevent the spread of communism. Their fear was Vietnam falling into communism. As a result, the surrounding areas would fall to communism as well. This was called the domino effect. Chapter 3, The Light at the End of the Tunnel, goes into further detail about American fear of the domino effect, while also going into further detail about the United States draft efforts and why they got involved in the first place. The next chapter, 1968, the year that shook the world, communicates initial American support for the war and depicts the lack of American support as the war dragged on. The American public expected a swift victory and was very confused as to why the war had yet to be won. Chapter 5, Vietnamization, talks about the demoralization of American efforts. Finally, the last chapter, Forgetting and Remembering, enumerates how the United States forgets about its participation in the war, and how they remember those who fought in it. While fighting in Vietnam, the U.S. military used a wide variety of herbicides to clear plants in order to make the transportation of troops easier and to kill Vietnamese crops. One of the most famous of all these poisons was called Agent Orange. The U.S. sprayed over 13 million gallons of this substance over Vietnamese jungles and crop fields. The thing that made Agent Orange so dangerous was one of its ingredients called dioxin. Later studies found that dioxin was the cause for many health issues. These health problems affected not only the Vietnamese people but also the U.S. soldiers in the area and their families. Dioxin caused cancer and birth defects as well as psychological and neurological problems. The use of herbicides by the U.S. in the war was codenamed Operation Ranch Hand. There was a chemical agent for most of the common colors like blue and green, for example. The names for chemical agents were given based on the color of the label on their containers. The agents came in different mixtures to be used in different applications. However, Agent Orange was by far the most potent and most widely used out of them all. Out of the 20 million gallons of herbicide used, Agent Orange is said to account for 13. These chemical agents were dropped from airplanes and trucks as well as spread by hand in some cases. The most dangerous chemical in Agent Orange is called tetrachlorodibenzo-P-dioxin, often shortened to TCDD. Dioxin is a byproduct of herbicide production and can also be produced by burning trash, gas, and coal, to name just a few ways. Dioxin is a carcinogen, or a cancer-causing agent. Once in the environment, dioxin will last quite a long time in the plants, ground, and water. It is usually ingested by animals and people unintentionally by eating/drinking plants, meat, and water infected with the chemical. Veterans and their families on both sides of the war reported skin rashes and irritation as well as miscarriages and type 2 diabetes developing. Children of those exposed are prone to birth defects or prostate cancer and leukemia. The U.S. government apparently was aware in some way dioxin could have severe negative effects on humans, however did not seem to care much as they expected the enemy to experience most of the negative effects of the chemical. Veterans of the war and their families suffering from the effects of dioxin filed a class action lawsuit against the companies that produced the chemicals. These companies reportedly paid out $180 million to these people as compensation. During the Vietnam War, the United States military used several chemical weapons as an advantage in their war. One of those chemical weapons was known as CS gas, also called tear gas. In the article, CS gas, How to Combat the Effect, it explains how the first widespread use of CS gas was during the Vietnam War. CS gas is known to irritate and burn skin, burn eyes, cause chest tightness, and creates burning sensations in both the throat and nose. CS gas was thrown into Vietnamese hiding pits, which resulted in many soldiers running out of hiding. This was an advantage to the United States soldier because it helped defeat many Vietnamese troops. The properties of this compound were first discovered by American chemists in 1928. However, there was the question as to if CS gas could be used in the Vietnam conflict. In the text, Driven to Tears, Britain, CS tear gas, and the Geneva Protocol, 1969 to 1975, it stated, although the legal status of CS tear gas became the focus of public controversy in Britain in 1970, the issue had been building since 1965 with international criticisms of American use of the substance in Vietnam linked to the question of the prohibition of tear gases under the 1925 Geneva Protocol. On February 2, 1970, after months of debate, Michael Stewart, British Labour Foreign Secretary, stated that the government considered CS gas to fall outside of the coverage of the Geneva Protocol, which banned chemical and biological warfare. The chemical, CS, is in one of the chemical groups called lacrimators. Lacrimator are tear-producing agents. Therefore, CS is also commonly known as tear gas. Napalm was a commonly used chemical by the United States in times of war. In the Vietnam War, a strain of napalm known as Napalm B was used. Napalm B is a mixture of gasoline, benzene, and polystyrene that was popular due to its simple bathtub chemistry. A small company known as the Dow Chemical Company, which previously was known for production of Saran wrap, was listed at 75th on the list of military contractors in 1967. They quickly became the military's leading supplier of napalm. Napalm becomes a jellied gasoline fireball that would stick to human skin on contact and continue to burn, causing gruesome burns and injuries to those affected. The effects of napalm are so devastating. Once its effects had been introduced to the public, nationwide protests broke out against its use in military conflict. These protests most notably took place on college campuses by college students, which proved to be very influential in their push to end the usage of napalm.